Welcome to Shorty SuperCoach, and as you can see today we'll be having a look at the first team I've put together for 2016. Of course, SuperCoach was released today, which was exciting, and bearing in mind, while this is my first team, many of you probably would have had a crack on other forums. I know this is pretty much a similar team to what I had going on Fan Footy in the program they have, but this will be the last time you see my team for another 55 or so days until that round 1 game. I will do a round 1 release of my team and the exact side I'll be heading into 2016 with, but I do feel rating teams and releasing teams is slightly overrated. It is fun in theory to have a look at sides and other people's teams and see who they've got, but I think it's more valuable for me to talk about players and philosophies and what you should be looking for and discuss pros and cons of players and make your own mind up. It really annoys me with other websites and things like that just release the exact players you should be picking from in this part of the ground, in this price range. I think you've got to have a bit of unique about your side. I really do. So I think while I'll release this today and then do a round 1 in a few months or whatever it is, that'll be about it for me, and otherwise I'll be talking about different philosophies on players and positions and what you'll be looking for. But anyway, we'll of course start with the back line. Now I'll just run through mainly the players on the field, because at this point in time, as you can see, I've got some rookies in place, but you don't know too much about them, who's going to get games, and you really hone in on those through NAB Challenge. So I'll run through mainly the starters. As I've said in the Sydney preview, Jared McVeigh is an absolute lock as far as I'm concerned. Cade Kolajasny, I really like him as a prospect, reasonably priced at $4.82 there, and I think he has great upside at the Suns if he can play some midfield time, and the back end of last year was really impressive. I must say these next two players, Brodie Smith and Chris Yarran, I'm not totally sold on them, and I must harp on the fact that this side, while the structure in place is pretty much what I'll be running with, and the majority of these players, barring injury, will be in my starting squad, there are a few that I'll outline that are, fighting their position, so to speak. Brodie Smith, it'll depend if he can get a bit of a rotation in the midfield and how he goes with taggers, etc. He's on uneasy ground at times, but I think he's reasonably priced and could bounce back. Same goes with Chris Yarran. He's very well priced for what he's capable of. Haven't seen enough of it from Yarran in the past. I do say, as I did in the Richmond preview, that I think his upside is huge and he'll be used as a weapon for the Tigers more than likely, and that price is pretty well placed. But there's also a guy like Jimmy Bartel, which I really wanted to squeeze in my team. I think he's a player that, given a good NAB challenge, might sneak into my side. So, and of course, you've got the two Mitch Browns there. I think they'll feature in a lot of sides, and Hartley and Rice there, which, they're likely picks at the moment, but certainly we'll wait and see on the NAB challenge. That back line as a whole could probably add a bit more bulk to it. I think McVeigh's the only real one that stands out from there, so I will look to strengthen that. And as I say, Brodie Smith and Chris Yarran probably may make way. I think Yarran, he's probably on fairly shaky ground, because when I did this side on the Fan Footy, he was right on my radar, but he has had a bit of an injury of late, so he may be making way. But as I say, it's a bit of a template and it's a bit of fun at this stage. The midfield, I'm looking to go relatively big in the midfield this year, and for reason being, there's quite a few high valued players which I'll get to, but my absolute top end premiums, running with Pendlebury. Of course, he's a gun, we know what Pendles is about. Lock him in for 115 plus average, and I actually think Pendlebury offers a slight amount of value. I think he could go back somewhere in the 120s, and I think definitely you lock him in for hundreds each week. He's consistent, you can place him there. He's a hard player to pick up throughout the season because he doesn't throw many bad ones, so I feel just get him in now. Same goes for Gary Ablett. Isn't it great to be put Ablett straight in our team, because I feel so often we have to have that week-to-week debate and pre-season to pre-season about is he worth the dosh. But thankfully, since that 21 that he scored when he went off early last year, we can lock him in for 623, which is fantastic. So he's an absolute lock. Tommy Rockcliffe, I really like him as a prospect, was one of my first picks for this season. I think he's slightly undervalued for what he can do. Obviously pumped out that 130 average, which was amazing a couple of years ago, and I can't see him dropping off anytime soon. And you can get him for about 80 or so K, less than those previous guys that I said. So I think he offers plenty of assurity and a slight bit of value, which is really nice. Joel Selwood, as I said before, this team was probably done a week or so ago, and I pretty much just picked that same team that I did in Fan Footy onto this today. I've been reading that foot has really caused Joel some problems and he's unlikely to play. Well, he's a chance for round 1, but he's pretty much ruled himself out for NAB Challenge. So given that, I really like, especially for my midfielders, to just be primed and playing absolute brilliant footy throughout the pre-season, hit round 1 running on the ground. So Selwood, I know at times he has had poor pre-seasons and still played good footy, but he'll probably make way. I'm unsure for who, but at this point in time, he is on shaky ground with that injury, so he's probably one man I'll be looking to change up. Luke Parker, also another man who's not locked into my side, but I like what he has to offer. A bit of value, as I said in the preview that I did for Sydney. You can have a look at my thoughts on him there. Do I back him in to go 110, which is what I look for in the midfield? Probably not, and that's a question mark on him. I might watch his NAB Challenge closely. I do question his ability to go high ceiling, so that'll be one question mark over him. And, you know, a mid-forward option is great. Through the midfield, maybe not, but he's there for now and at a reasonable price. And as I said, plenty of value. Liberatore, lock him in. As I say in the Dogs preview, he's a no-brainer. 357k. We know what he can do. Absolute lock. Similar can be said for O'Meara. Obviously, we haven't seen as much brilliant footy from O'Meara. Some really impressive years for such a youngster. And at that price, it's hard to say no. I have heard his pre-season is going okay without, you know, really being on top of the schedule. I think the NAB Challenge will really decide a lot about whether we pick O'Meara, whether he's going to be primed for round 1. But you're not going to need much convincing at that price. You really won't. A similar man around his price is Brad Crouch. You might be surprised that he's not in my team, and I am a little surprised as well, I must say. I would like to fit him in, and he's one man that I will try and fit in throughout the pre-season, I think. Just at this point in time, didn't quite get him in, but he's high on my radar, no doubt. He's a guy that I think if he, at any stage, looks like he's back to his best, despite a few injuries he's had, if he looks back to his best through NAB Challenge, lock him in. Ahern, Freeman, Hiscox, Keys, throw them around any way you like. I think they're a handy few players that should play a few games, but as I say, NAB Challenge is going to be the real deciding factor on which rookies you play. So that's the midfield. As a whole, I'm pretty happy with it. You can check out my philosophies on the midfield in a video that I'm going to be doing later down the track on really going big because they offer more points for a similar price tag on the premium status as we talk about. But I'll go into that later down the track, but as a whole I'm fairly happy with it, how it's looking at the moment, given a few alterations. I've gone with a poor man's ruck duo, that's for sure. Lobe and Leuenberger, they're at 390 and 310 there. Pretty cheap stuff. Normally the traditional way is to go with a premium ruckman and then perhaps your mid-pricer. I think Leuenberger is an absolute lock, especially as I said, once that ban got handed down to the Bombers players, he's now got the number 1 mantle, battling with basically no one. He's an absolute certainty, barring injury. Lobe, I've been too, back and forth with him at times. I think he offers good value. I'm a bit concerned about how high he can go. I would like to get that 105 plus sort of ruckman. He's shown a little bit that he can go around that 100, low hundreds, so I think we'll like to see what he does throughout the pre-season, but at the moment he offers good value, and I feel that by going cheap in my rucks, I can really beef up other areas, and I'm not fully sold on a lot of the top-end rucks at this point. Goldstein's your obvious choice, and he's going to drop. So I felt like Leuenberger, mid-price, a lock. Who else do I want? Probably Goldstein down the track. He will drop. It just depends by how much. And a lot of other rucks at that real top end, I'm either not 100% convinced on, or their injuries concern me. So that's something to consider when looking at your side. But Dan Curry just thrown in there. I had Derek's as well at one point that I was looking at, but there's 50 or 60k that I can work with if I need a downgrade, and all depends on which sort of options are floating about and which guys are going to play game time in that second ruck, or perhaps an inexperienced ruckman that might be getting a few games that we can cash in on. So as I said, treat the bench with little recognition because they're not too important at this point in time. Moving on to the forward line, Dustin Martin kicks it off. I think he's a likely choice. Had an interesting pre-season, no doubt, getting himself in a bit of trouble and a bit of the headlines, which is never good, but Dustin seems to be able to do that. But I'm locking him in, to be honest. I still think he could go even higher than what he did last year. He offers such potential and he's so damaging. So for me, he's a lock. Harley Bennell, another man who managed to find his way into a reasonable amount of trouble as well. I'm not as sold on him. Recently been reading and saw that he's been struggling with the calf injuries and he's on light duties at the moment, which always concerns me, especially Bennell. I like where he's at, but he's not offering me a great deal of value. I think he's going to be a bloke I'm going to want at some point throughout the season, but he's not offering great value. So I think to look at him when he's not going through a great pre-season with a new club, potentially tread with caution. So he's a man that I'm weighing up downgrading to a Toby Green, which has been an extremely popular pick, Toby Green. I'm not fully sold on how much game time he'll be playing through the midfield, I should say, because he played forward for predominantly last year, which sees him priced around that 445, if my memory serves me correct. So a potential downgrade there, which could allow me to do some, other alterations with the players I've mentioned that aren't fully sold on yet in other divisions. But I think Bennell's going to be a popular pick, and for good reason, because if he gets into the NAB Challenge and looks good, a lot of people are going to pick him. So Michael Barlow, another docker there. Also, I think he's a no-brainer. He's cheaper. He'll surely be back to playing that pure midfield role. I saw that Ross Lyon tried him in a few different positions last year and, not necessarily right in the thick of it. And I think he was out at form at times as well. I mean, of course, he got subbed off in that big game against the Eagles. So, wasn't his best year, but I expect him to be back. And if I need any more convincing, the fact that you can get him as a forward as well, you just lock him in. So, Buddy Franklin, probably you look at that and go, gee, that's risky, because he too has had a indifferent sort of pre-season with a few things going on in the back end of last year. But I love Buddy. I think he's priced at a great range there. You can check out my thoughts on the Sydney preview on Buddy there. I think he's too hard to resist at that price. If he really gets going in the pre-season and shows me anything that he's back to what he can really do, I'll be locking Buddy in, because of that price range. I think he's an exception to the rule of the key forwards in SuperCoach. He can really go big and there's a real chance to average 3 figures if he really gets it going. So they're my premiums for the forward line. I'm relatively convinced on a few, but there's definitely room to move with a few of them. I think Martin and Barlow and Franklin to a lesser extent will be locked, barring injury and etc. But, room to move, as I said. Menzel, again, that position's up for grabs. I'm looking for a bloke around that 200 to 260 sort of range. There's a few options there, the likes of Crozier as well, and Wells is there, dare I say, Daniel Wells, but there are a few options fighting about, so depending if I need a bit of cash, I love Menzel as an option. I know he's had so much injury trouble and maybe managed at times, but his upside is enormous and he's so valuable to the Cats, so a wait and see prospect on that position for sure. And then we've got Petrarca, I think is a lock despite his injury with the basketball. Kerridge, we'll wait and see what sort of position he plays for the Blues, and Pickett, he's a former top pick, so he's likely to get extra chance and a bit more of a pre-season under his belt. But as I say, those rookie price players, much is yet to be seen, so NAB Challenge will certainly show up plenty for that. But look, that's my team, at least around one, first crack at it. I'm reasonably happy with it. Obviously, I've been having a look pretty closely with doing every preview for every club. So I've been thinking about this initial team for some time and been moulding my team quite a bit on the Fan Footy website. So I'm fairly happy with it. Hopefully not too many injuries to a few of these players I've got through the pre-season, because that always throws a bit of a spanner in the works. But as a whole, I'm fairly happy with it. A few players I wouldn't mind trying to squeeze in. But as I say, a lot will be found out through NAB Challenge. But let me know your thoughts on that round one team. Am I an absolute spud? Let me know. Are you pretty happy with a few of these picks I've got in? Let me know any changes you would make to my side, and a few players that you may have and you think are absolute locks and I've just totally missed. But I think there's quite a few players out there that it's hard to squeeze them all in, that offer great value and are absolute gems. So I've fit a few in there, but give me your thoughts, give the video a like and give the channel a subscribe. Been getting a few subscribers of late, which has been really pleasing, and really happy to get that number up and going. So as I say, there'll be plenty of SuperCoach content coming your way, because it's going to really start to get going now. So I look forward to your comments, and I look forward to plenty more views in the future.